Sinners was released in April of this year to massive financial success. But was it an anemic theatrical experience? Or was there enough meat there for you to sink your teeth into? Did I make enough puns to be taken seriously as a corny YouTube movie reviewer? This is Painting Shadows. Hello everyone, Marcos here, Release the Files. Today we will be painting and reviewing 2025's Sinners. Sinners was written and directed by Ryan Coogler and stars Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Mike Catton, Delroy Lindo, Jamie Lawson, and Jack O'Connell. The film is set in post-World War I Mississippi, where two brothers, Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, return to their hometown after being a part of a criminal empire in Chicago. And right out of the gate, they really nail that southern, sweaty vibe that you'd expect from the American South in this time period. There's no point in which you question the setting. It really does feel like 1930s America. The way the characters talk, the way that they dress, the environment itself, the types of neighborhoods that they live in, really draw you into the entire vibe of the movie. While the art direction is a bit mundane, it is appropriate, so it's hard to really complain about that. You don't get a lot of spectacular visuals, but there are some here and there. But it is really emblematic of the time period. It does a great job of presenting a mundane world, so when things do get crazy, you have that contrast from the regular, the standard, the normal, to the fantastical. I didn't follow this movie much in its pre-release. I saw a couple of the trailers, but I had not realized how much music plays a central role to the story. It's really hard to convey how important Delta blues was to the South during that time period. You have iconic figures like Howling Wolf, Muddy Waters, and of course Robert Johnson, whose stories are even legendary to this day. And obviously the brothers Smoke and Stack is a clear reference to Howling Wolf's song Smokestack Lightning and the smokestack imagery that was pretty prevalent in Delta blues at that time. So this tie-in to music was a pleasant surprise to me. The brothers Smoke and Stack return to Mississippi to open up a juke joint, and they recruit a few blues musicians, including their younger cousin they call Preacher Boy, who is, of course, the son of a preacher man, as they would say. We are introduced to the idea early on that those who play music very well are a conduit into something much greater than themselves, something that can attract both great and terrible things to them, and that is how we are introduced to our villains in this film. There is a scene where Preacher Boy is playing the blues and is pouring out his heart into the audience, and he is transcending through the past, present, and future, and is connecting his ancestors and the ancestors of everyone in the building together, as well as people who are yet to come. And this scene I found to be really interesting, if not maybe a little bit corny. I loved the concept of the scene. I don't know if they completely nailed it. There is one thing that connects us to our ancestors and will connect us to our progenitors long into the future, is our connection to art, and music being one of those, and perhaps the most primal of all arts. You may not be able to paint, you may not be able to sculpt, but you can make a sound. You can vibrate airwaves, you can create a beat, you can yell, you can scream. We all have the power to do that. Although it may be crude, we all have the power to make music in some form. So visually, I think that scene is awesome, but I don't think they quite nail the song portion of it. The blues song that the character of Preacher Boy is playing is great. The mashup between other songs, particularly the songs that exist in the future from that timeline of 1930s Mississippi, doesn't build into a crescendo in a satisfying way. It kind of just leaves off. The visuals are awesome. We get all of this energy, and it kind of becomes a bonfire, a torch in the night sky that the vampires are able to see in the distance and are drawn towards this beautiful music that Sam Preacher Boy is playing. And the Delta Blues is not the only music that is represented in this film. We also get a little bit of a taste of Irish folk music as played by the villains in this film, the vampires, who is led by an ancient Irish vampire named Remick. How old is he? We don't exactly know, but from the description of his upbringing, we can tell that he was born quite a bit in the past. And I really do love this clash of African American Southern blues and Irish folk because ultimately the two major influences on American rock and roll music was those two genres. You can really hear the DNA in both of those genres clashing to become rock and roll. I don't know if that was Ryan Coogler's intent when he was writing this story, but I imagine that it was because he seems to be pretty well studied in this era. The design of the vampires are very simple, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. They don't become monstrous gargoyles, they don't become mindless flesh eaters, but their eyes become gold when light reflects off of them, making them look like feral predators. Of course, their teeth elongate in the way that you'd expect a vampire's teeth to elongate, and their hands become ripping claws. There is nothing fancy in how these vampires look, but I think it really fits the time period. It really fits the aesthetic of the movie, and if they had gone too far with it, it would have felt like it didn't belong or it didn't fit. It all comes together in telling this folk tale more than anything. And another thing I find interesting about the vampires, and particularly their leader, Remick, is that they don't approach their victims as monsters. They try to lure them in, they try to make them feel like they are part of the group, that they are offering something better than what their victims have in the world. They're trying to sell them a false sense of diversity, a false sense of hope and community, that we can all be brothers in this world as blood drinking monsters. In that way, Remick is a bit of a sympathetic villain rather than a monster that you would typically expect. And you never quite know if he is selling them some bullshit or if he really believes this line of logic, because as the movie goes on, we begin to learn that the vampires are part of this parasitic, psychic hive mind where Remick understands all the thoughts and all the dreams and all the history of each person that he's turned into a vampire and is able to replicate them in some form or fashion. I don't think I'm going to be the first person to draw this comparison, but Sinners feels a lot like a movie that John Carpenter would make, down to there being a scene that is very similar to John Carpenter's The Thing, where at some point the remaining patrons of Club Juke do a vampire test where they all try to eat a little piece of garlic to show that they are not indeed a vampire. But it is just beyond that scene. And it's not just that scene. John Carpenter had a way of making fantastic things seem mundane, seem part of the real world, part of people's day to day lives, where we see their relationships play out within this crazy world as things are falling apart around them. It is more about the characters and how they relate to each other and how they relate to the situation more than just the big scary monster that is chasing after them. We get a big concept, scary villains, and we ground them into something that is serious, something that is character focused, and something that has a guitar rock score, which I was actually really surprised about when I came into watching this movie. Of course, the blues is all over this movie and is an important part, but when we get into the non diegetic music, big word, it is mostly rock guitar that punctuates a scene, and I thought that was pretty cool. As you know, I don't like to get too deep into acting performances. It's not an art form I feel like I am capable of judging properly. I find most performances to be fine. When there's a standout performance, it will draw me to them. If there is one that is bad, I can laugh at it. But generally, most acting performances sit somewhere in the middle to me, and this movie is mostly that. Everything is pretty good, nothing stands out as bad. I will like to point out Delroy Lindo's character, Delta Slim. He is an old drunk blues player that really stands up for himself and his people when he is needed to. And I love Delroy Lindo. I remember the first time I seen him in Romeo Must Die in theaters with my mom. I think it came out in 2000. I was 14 years old, I think, something like that. And there was some awkward and uncomfortable sex scenes. That was like the first time I've seen something like that with my mom. And I tried to play it off as cool, but obviously it was very awkward. But I've enjoyed Delroy Lindo's performances ever since then, and I'm happy to see that he has a spot in this movie, and I love him in this movie. He is great. And I also want to commend Jack O'Connell's performance as Remick, this manipulative vampire who is straddling the edge of being a kind and welcoming host to being this barbaric monster. Ultimately, the main weakness of this film to me is that it is a little longer than it should be. It feels like it takes too long to end and has too many additional scenes post the end that stretches it out and maybe weakens the overall product. That is kind of taking the big picture view. This movie is not perfect, but it is great. There is a subplot that I felt that could have been either cut out or built up throughout the movie a little bit more to justify how important it is at the end. But it leads to a really cool scene, so it's like, who cares? It was awesome. Like, they didn't really build it up, they didn't really justify it that well, but it is so badass when the final part of it happens that whatever, who cares? We do get a few post-credit sequences. One that features Buddy Guy, which is pretty awesome that they were able to feature him in this film. He is like the last living blues legend from that era. I mean, he was a little bit after that era, but he is built up from that generation. And since this movie is so entrenched in blues history, it feels appropriate to have him there. And it's amazing that they were able to honor him in that way. This movie did feel like it couldn't figure out how it should end, but I'll excuse that scene a little bit just because he is such a legendary figure, not only to blues, but to American history in general, at least in my opinion. So, in conclusion, Sinners may be a flawed movie in terms of its pacing and its runtime. However, I believe the whole massively outweighs the sum of its parts, and this is a fantastic movie. There may be some small things here and there that you can nitpick, but you're having so much fun watching it. None of those flaws really bother you at all. It is just a great time. It really has everything that I want in a movie. It has great action, it has great villains, it has cool heroes. I didn't really talk about Michael B. Jordan's dual role as Smoke and Stack. I feel like we've already accepted that Michael B. Jordan is good, so I don't really have to praise him much more than he already has been praised a million times over. So I'll just leave it at that. Sinners may have not challenged its viewers, but it also didn't treat you like an idiot that a lot of mainstream movies do. This is the type of movie where you can have your cake and eat it too. I didn't try to rhyme there. I'm kind of embarrassed about that. So I highly recommend you go see Sinners. It has been streaming for a few months now. This review is a bit late. I have been making larger videos that has taken me more time, so it took me a little while to get to this one, but it was totally worth it, and you should go check it out. In my little score system, my ranking system, I give this a high gold trophy. I'm even maybe teetering into platinum. Yeah, Sinners was great. Go see it. Thank you for watching this video. Tell me what you thought of it. Tell me what you thought of Sinners. Tell me what you thought of my painting. Please like, share, and comment on this video if you feel compelled to do so. Consider subscribing. I will continue to make these movie reviews slash painting videos as well as discussion videos and tier lists, and I will be painting all the way through it all, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Oh, you're still there? Well, I'd like to thank you for watching my videos here. My last video, the franchise tier list of the Halloween movies, got over 200 views. And I know in the scheme of YouTube that is not very much, but for a guy who just wanted to paint and make videos for fun, that is quite huge for me. So I'd like to sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch my dumb videos and liking it and all of that. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, cool. Thanks. Also, the painting is still wet. You can see I got like, well, you would be able to see some yellow and reddish brown on my thumbs. Wet paint.